Hi there, I'm Professor Juris, and I wanted to make you a quick video and show you how to use the Horseman view camera that we have in the studio here at Sinclair College. So to start with, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to put the film holder into the camera. And there's a separate video that explains everything that you need to know about the film holder, like how to put the film in, how to know when the film is exposed. But once I have the film holders all loaded and the white side of the dark slide is facing out, that means the film hasn't been exposed yet. I need to put the film into the view camera when I'm going to use it. So what I do is I simply take this back right here and I slide this back just a little bit. And I would say maybe just about an inch. You don't want to crank it way back because you will actually break it. I've seen a number of these broken by students from just pulling them back and they just break right off. So you just want to pull it back a little bit. You take your film holder, you line it up in here, and then you're just going to snugly push it down and you'll hear it click. Once you hear that click, then you know that it's in the right position. Now again, remember also that there's two pieces of film in here. One is facing the back dark slide and one is facing the lens. The one that's facing the lens is the piece of film that you're going to want to expose. And again, you want to make sure that your lens is totally closed when you get ready to expose it. But what you'll do is take your dark slide out. I like to actually lay my dark slide right on top of the camera when I take a picture. Then I would take my picture and then I'm going to put the dark slide back in to the film holder with the black side out. So see, there's a white side and a black side. The black side means that the film has been exposed. So once I've taken the picture, I simply slide the dark slide back in there, and then I'm ready to take another picture where I can pull the back. Again, I'm just going to pull this back a little bit and I will firmly take the dark slide out. So again, to use the dark slide, or to use the film holder, I'm going to simply pull the back a little bit, make sure it's lined up, and then press it down firmly, and you will hear it click into place. So the next thing I want to show you is this camera set up right now to take a vertical picture. If I wanted to change this to horizontal, what I do is I come over here on the side and there's a little lever that we push right there. And when I push that little lever, you see it's right here, I'm going to pull it up and then the whole thing will come and move. So then there should be another one down here. I'm going to pop that one out of place and then I can take the whole back off of the camera. This is also important to do if you by chance had your film in the film holder wrong, and you put the film holder into the camera and your film actually popped into the camera. So if that happens, what you can do is actually take the back off to get your piece of film out of the camera. And that happens a lot to starting students, so don't really worry about it, just go ahead and do that. So now what I'm gonna do is push the film back on here, make sure it's pushed in firmly and securely, and then I will go ahead and just slide these things back down, and that will lock the back into place. And the same thing when using it this way, I'm simply going to pull it back a little bit. I can slide the film holder out, pull it this way, and I can slide the film holder in and make a firm click. The next thing I'll show you is how to take the lens on and off if you ever needed to do that. Again, you can use that for removing film. So to take the lens on and off, or if you wanted to change lenses sometime, we only have this one lens here for this camera, but if you wanted to use more lenses, you would simply take and push this down, push this up, and then the whole lens board comes out. It's also good if you want to clean the lens, say if there's some dirt on the lens or something. Now, if you do decide to clean the lens, please make sure that you're only cleaning the lens with lens cleaning tissue and lens cleaning fluid. Don't use like your shirt or something. You need to have something soft, otherwise you could scratch the lens because we do not have filters over this lens. So I'm going to put the lens back in to the camera right now and close this down. Now, one of the things that I've told students to do when using this camera, first of all, this is your first studio class, and if this is your first time using a view camera, I'm going to try to show you how to use this camera very easily and make things very simple for you when using this camera. One of the things that you want to do is try to line the camera up, and where you can see the tripod head right here, try to line the camera up so it's in the center of that. And what I mean by that is when I use this camera, when I move this, I don't want to use the camera and have it way back here out of balance on this on this rail. This is the view camera rail. So I want to have the camera to start with in the center of the rail. So if you come in here and the view camera's all messed up already, what you want to do is, before you even start photographing, is go ahead and set the camera up in the middle of the rail like so. And then with the knobs right here, there's also a little lever right here you can tighten up to lock this into place. So the first thing I do is, once I have this set up like that, is I lock the back down into place. The next thing you want to do is kind of view over the whole view camera, take a look at it, and you want to make sure you're set to 0 on all the calibration marks. So if you look right back here, I can actually, change this. This is the swing. So when somebody might have this messed up like that and locked into place. So you want to make sure that you go through the whole camera and set everything back to 0 before you start. So, and that would be your swings, your tilts, your shifts. You want to make sure everything's set to 0. And then I'm going to turn this around now again so we can see these. And again, make sure they're locked too, because if you don't lock them down, what's going to happen is when you're going to take a picture, it could move or something, and that'll throw you totally off. So the first movement I'm going to show you, and you can do this a number of ways with this camera, but is actually a tilt. And what I'm going to do with the tilt is I'm going to loosen this right here, and you can see the tilt right here, and I'm going to put about a 2-degree tilt on the camera. And I always use my camera with about a 2-degree tilt on it. It's a very small tilt right here on the front plane. And what that does is that'll actually give you just a little bit more depth of field with every shot that you take. And that's an old photographer's trick. I don't know if you'll find that in any textbook or not. That's one of the things I learned when I attended the Rhode Island School of Photography. So if you put just a slight 2-degree tilt on that, that's about all you're going to need. Now I'm going to show you the rest of the movements on the view camera, but to start with, what I would basically do when you're going to take a picture is, again, open up your lens, have that 2-degree tilt on there, pretty much leave the camera all standard, and then just use your front plane to focus. So when I'd have a subject over there, I would have a dark cloth over my head, have my lens all the way open. Again, you have to have the film holder out when you focus. And then I would simply use the front standard on the camera, moving it back and forth, looking at the dark glass. And this is where you could also use a loop too, to actually look through the loop to bring the camera into focus. One of the other things that's important when you're setting, and then once you have the camera in focus, you'd go ahead and tighten this little knob right here to actually lock it into position. One of the things that's important when you're using this camera is that you set up the subject and everything correctly. And one of the most important parts of using a view camera, and I'm going to have another video just on using a tripod, but it's important to set up your tripod correctly right from the start. And you could take the camera off of the tripod when you're doing this if you want to, if it's kind of heavy, or have somebody help you with it. But the camera height is very important. You generally want to have the camera height, like if you were taking my picture right now, the camera would be a little bit low, because you want to have the center of the camera, the center of the lens, right about at the center of a person's face if you're photographing a person. Maybe even a little bit higher, say an inch or so higher. But you want to do that by using the legs of the tripod. You don't want to use the center column a whole lot when you're using a view camera, because the view camera is heavy and you'll get vibration and movement. So I would only use the center column once the tripod's legs are up as high as they will go. And that's a very important feature, or a very important thought, something to think about. So when you're setting up, like when you have a subject come in and you're going to set up your photograph, what you want to do is adjust your tripod. And the way that you adjust the tripod, the most simple way, and again I'm going to have a video on this, but is to have all 3 legs together, push the legs in. Don't do them when the tripod's out. In other words, fold the tripod legs up and then loosen them up and let them fall to the floor, and then simply move the camera up and down, or the tripod up and down with the camera, so you could see it at the right height, and then you could tighten them or have an assistant tighten the little things at the bottom of the tripod to lock it into position and then open it up. And then that'll give you the right height. You don't really want to adjust the center column up and down a whole lot. Like I've come into the studio here, and students have just been photographing, and they'll have the the center column of the tripod extended up like 3 feet. Well, that's just going to give you wiggle and movement when you take your pictures. So again, with this camera, the firmer you can make things, the better off you're going to be. In other words, the more sturdier you can secure the camera so it's not moving. So on the camera, one of the things that we have is something called rise and fall. And what rise and fall is on the camera is when I bring my front standard up like this, or my back standard. See, the back standard wasn't locked, so let me go ahead and lock that. But when I move my front standard up, I can get rise, and with this camera, there's your fall right there. So I'm doing this by a knob that's over here on this side. Let me turn it over and show you that. And what rise and fall does is basically it's a compositional adjustment, and it'll help you adjust your horizon line. So if you were taking a picture of me and say like you're losing my head the way it is right now in the video I'm making, with rise and fall you could simply raise this up and still then get my head in without actually bringing the camera or the tripod up and down. And it works to a certain extent. What you do need to watch for, especially a beginner if you're using rise and fall, is that you don't have cutoff. And one of the easiest ways to check if you have cutoff is when your lens is open, you can look through the back of the lens and make sure that you see, or look through the lens when the lens is wide open, and you can make sure that you see the 4 notches that are in the dark slide. And this is what I'm talking about right here, these 4 notches. Now you can also check to see if you have cut off or fall off when the lens is closed down to the f-stop that you're going to be using, because you may have fall off with the lens wide open, but you may not have fall off or cut off when the lens is closed down all the way to like f22 or something. So when you stop your lens all the way down, what you could do is, that's what the reason these little things are here for, is you can peek through these little cutouts that are on the dark slide and see if you can see the whole f-stop or the whole aperture without the aperture being cut off. If you can see the whole aperture, it means that you won't have any fall off or cut off in your picture, and you'll get the full frame or get everything in the picture that you have in the picture, rather than part of it being all black on the negative or thin on the negative because it didn't get exposed there. So check for fall off, but that's rise and fall. The next thing again is, like I talked about, having a 2-degree tilt when I take a picture, and there's a little thing right here, a measurement thing, but you see this is tilt right here. And the reason we use tilt is because when I'm using a view camera, one of the things that's nice about is, like with the 35mm camera, we simply have a vertical line that's going up and down, our focusing line, our focusing plane, that's vertical. And it always stays vertical, so we have depth of field going this way. But say I was photographing something that was actually on an angle, something that goes back like that. By using tilt, what I can do is I can focus the camera so that I have the same type of access to that plane that I would have if it was straight up and down and straight up and down. So I can change this tilt and focus. I usually focus at the top, and then I'll check it, and then I'll focus again, and I focus a couple times until I get it exactly where I want to have it at by moving it, and then I have all 4 planes, and I can have the whole picture in focus. And that's one of the nice things about the view camera, is you can get such crazy depth of field with it by having all that. So that's the swing. Now another thing you can do with this is shift. And let's see what the shift. The shift is right here, and you have to look on this little bar right here. And what the shift does too is it's actually kind of a compositional thing. Let me put this straight forward, and you can see what's happening here when I move the shift. But see, if I had something, and if you could see this view camera on the right-hand side of the picture right now. If I wanted to take that out and I was actually shooting with this, I could simply use the shift rather than picking up the whole tripod and moving it over. So I could shift the front lens board area, the front plane, and move it over a little bit one way or the other, just to get rid of something or to recompositionally arrange things. I have the same thing on the back. I can actually shift, so I can make both things shift to get really good focus. So generally when you're using a view camera, and a lot of people don't understand this part, But if with the cameras that move the front and the back parallels, you can actually move them both, try to keep them both in the same thing, and really correct and get a lot of depth of field by using those that way. So I think that pretty much covers it. We covered rise and fall, which is the you know, the cameras going up and down for use for your horizon line. We covered tilt, which is for correcting for a vertical plane that's horizontally or on an angle. And again, I use mine at about a 2-degree tilt all the time. And if you look on right here, it's very slight, but I just set that to 2 degrees and then I lock it in. And what that does is that will give me an increased depth of field. And then we go through shift, and shift is when I shift this from one side to another. And then the other thing, or the last thing, is called swing. And let's see if I can get the swing to loosen up here. There we go, right here. And swing is again when I need to, if I had a vertical tilt, or my vertical plane is actually tilted. And let me show you a little bit more to the side like this, and you could kind of understand. So when the camera's going this way now, so if I turn this, I can get swing. And if I was taking a picture of something that was actually on an angle rather than straight, I could use a little bit of swing so that I could get that into focus. And generally what I'll do is, you know, I'll swing it a little bit, focus it, swing it a little bit more, focus it, and, you know, till I have it all right and I could check all corners. And I'll start to stop my lens down and look through the back dark slide, and I can see everything in focus. And so I think that basically covers your movements and so forth on here. There's a couple little level bubbles at the top you can check to make sure that your camera is level, if you want to make sure that it's level when you're using it. But I think the key to becoming good with this camera is to shoot a lot with it. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it. You're in a course where you have an opportunity to use this. I would sign up for as many studio hours as you can and come in and use this a lot. When I really became familiar with the view camera is when I got my own view camera and started shooting nothing but view camera. And I did that for about 10 years. That's all I used was a view camera. And I have thousands of negatives now. And the nice thing about negatives is, compared to digital files, somebody asked me for a digital file of something I shot the other day, and I'm thinking like, yeah, let me go back and look at what hard drive that's on. But with negatives, I have all my negatives filed, and I know exactly where they are by year, and I can go back in and find all my 4x5 negatives that I shot, and 8x10 negatives. So very convenient, and the picture quality is amazing. It's just stunning. So hope you enjoy this camera. Hope you enjoy the course, and you know, if you need help with something, let your instructor know, or, you know, send me an email. But hope that helps. Thank you.